And Matt has some very incriminating information about the three of us in terms of how we ended up getting to this point.
Yeah, I mean, how we get to the Super Bowl is one of the more crazy stories of the NFL the last decade, I think, because nobody on this podcast predicted either the Patriots nor the Seahawks to even make the playoffs. Each of them won 14 games and made the Super Bowl. So good on us. But what I was referencing about like how I feel connected, both of these teams are like the American dream to make the Super
Yeah.
Bowl, right? Specifically like compared to last year. It was very easy to explain away how the Chiefs made it or the Eagles made it. How'd the Chiefs make it? Well, they got the best player. They got Mahomes and he did it again. You know, like he lifts them up in the end against Buffalo, and he lifts them up in the end in the divisional round against I think it was Houston, right? They win
Mm.
15 games in the regular season. Blah blah blah. Philadelphia. Philadelphia had like they didn't even have a hole. Like their run game was really good with DeAndre Swift, and they were like, What if we put a supernova running back in the backfield? Let's go get Saquon Barkley, and he rushes for 2,000 yards, and then rushes for over 300 in 3 games going to the Super Bowl. Has a quiet Super Bowl, but you know what I'm saying. And all of these can be explained away. Like when the Rams make it, well, they traded for Stafford. Whenever the Niners make it, well, they have the best coach in Shanahan, and they continue to have great structure. Both of these teams, the Patriots and Seahawks, 2 years ago fired Hall of Fame coaches, and they're in the Super Bowl. And then you think about the offseason. Mike Vrabel took over a team that won 8 games in 2 seasons, fired 2 coaches in 2 years, and then his free agency plan was, I'm just going to get a ton of guys that I like. Robert Spillane, Carlton Davis, um, goes and overpays for Milton Williams, and then Milton Williams ends up being like the sole reason they're in the Super Bowl because of the way he blew up that fourth down against the Broncos, and like them going over the top to say like we're not going to lose this guy in a bidding war is pretty impressive. And then their draft is hilarious. It was just let's just draft a bunch of guys to around Drake May. Let's go get Henderson. Let's go get Campbell. Let's get Jared Wilson, who's going to play left guard for us, even though he's a center. Kyle Williams, who hasn't really been also Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs is a player. Did any of us think Stephon Diggs was going to impact anything this season, let alone be the anchor of a Super Bowl pass catching unit? No. And then you get into that's just the Patriots side of like, oh, the Patriots do it again. And then the Seattle side, Seattle's even more impressive to me because they're in the toughest division you can make the argument for. And after one season, Mike McDonald won 10 games with Ryan Grubb and was like, "Oh, this sucks. I'm going to get rid of my offensive coordinator, bring in the offensive coordinator from the Saints who won 6 games last year. I'm going to trade my quarterback, Geno Smith, who most of us liked. I we're all
Yeah,
wrong.
no, we
We were
did.
all
Yeah.
wrong. Like they trade away DK Metcalf. The pick that they use for DK Metcalf, they go up and get a guy like Nicky Manwari, who again is breaking my brain as I
Which, by
watch
the
him play
way,
football.
breaking news, by the way, the Seahawks announced today that he had an injury in practice. He was able to walk off
He's
on his own, but it
oh
was an ankle injury. Don't know if he's going to miss the Super Bowl, but he is listed as questionable. Carry on. Sorry.
that is impactful. That's not nothing. But like they just overhaul and then well, okay, you're going to trade away your quarterback. You're going to trade away one of your longest tenured players on offense in Metcalf, who's kind of like when you thought of the Seahawks the last half decade, it was Pete Carroll and DK Metcalf. Tyler Lockett. Cut Tyler Lockett as well. And they've just retooled this and it's like why not get Sam Darnold? Why not JSN's good, but he's a slot guy, and then JSN becomes the closest thing I've seen to prime Antonio Brown. That just everything about this season, and also the defensive end, going and being like, oh, we have a ton of guys: Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, Boye Mafe, Derek Hall, Chenna Nwosu. I can keep naming them. And they're like, well, we need one more. DeMarcus Lawrence, who played 100 snaps last year. He's going to be a player for us. Cooper Kupp, who clearly we all looked at as washed. Like he would be a fun, and he completes this offense as well. They drafted a guard in the first round. They drafted a safety with the 35th pick I just mentioned. Drafted a tight end who didn't really do anything, but still like low premium positions in the draft that you can go and look, and Seattle draft grades are probably C's everywhere. C plus, because they didn't draft edge rushers or receivers or a quarterback in the first 2 rounds. The most exciting part of our team in the offseason, Ben, was talking about Jalen Milroe. He fumbled in the first game of the season. Like, it's just, I was thinking long and hard about this, about like, this is the Super Bowl that I hope fans are watching and realizing, like, it gives you hope, because it gave me hope as a Saints fan, both sides, of like, if we get the coach right, we can kind of stabilize the ground floor with mid-tier free agents, and maybe you just hit it right. Maybe you get the right guys, the right coach. The quarterback isn't, and again, the Patriots are kind of an anomaly, because Drake May goes from, hey, he's kind of fun in like 7 games or whatever he played last year, MVP guy. So again, maybe they're an outlier and everything else like just rises to the tide of what he is, but he sucked in the playoffs so far. So you can't even like really make that argument to me. And then Seattle side is like, it's the Steelers conundrum. We're 10-7. We're good enough to be like right there, but let's still retool this in a way. Like, tear it down, retool, however. They traded their quarterback and receiver. Like, that's a teardown. And somehow they won 4 more games out of it. And Sam Darnold looks like, I mean, to be in Minnesota right now and like have to watch this game. They fired their GM because of it.
Their GM fired, yeah.
Like, well, that's also because of paternity leave, but just overall, like, it gives me hope as a Saints fan, saying like, what if, Tyler Shuck year 2? What if it looks like Drake May? Or what if it looks like 70% of Drake May? You get some guys right in the draft. This could win the division. And then, like, the other side of it, like, think about the Raiders. They're going to get Mendoza. They have $90 million in cap space. The Titans are the same thing. We have Cam Ward, $80-something million in cap space. What if we have the right coach now, because they're hiring new coaches? And then you think about, like, I mean, nobody really compares to Seattle except, like, maybe Minnesota, if that makes sense. If, like, they swap out McCarthy for a competent quarterback, even though, like, Darnold, the parallels there.
Yeah.
Or the Giants. Like, the Giants, being right there with a new coach and Harbaugh. Like, there's just so many teams in the league that are probably watching this game going, this could be us. And I don't think many Super Bowls have ever been like that, because most Super Bowls have been pointing and saying, well, I don't have a guy like Patrick Mahomes. Well, I don't have a GM like Howie Roseman to build a roster like that. Like, we just don't have the assets to build a roster like this. I don't have a coach like Kyle Shanahan. And now it's like,
I think it's encouraging too as Seahawks fans, or for Seahawks fans, strictly because it's like we were 10-7, missed the playoffs because of a strength of victory tiebreaker, and now we're in the Super Bowl after making moves that terrified us in the offseason. Like, nobody felt good about the Sam Darnold signing. There's no way you could find somebody. I understand he played well, but here's the thing. How many good years of Sam Darnold did he have compared to how many bad ones did he have, before that signing? And you're going to pay him that much. I remember reacting to it on my lunch break when it broke and us being like, it's a lot of money. I hope it works out for them.
And it was a fake contract on purpose. There was no guarantees into deep into the con. They could have, if this went according to where I thought it would, is that like they could cut him after year 1, maybe be in position for a Ty Simpson right now. Yeah. But they, again, the total opposite. Like, every bet they made was right. And similar to New England. It's just...
I do want to say and stake, Ben and I, at least, I don't remember if you were on the same train, but I remember Ben and I having a conversation saying JSN's going to be the real deal. And he was. So out of all the things we were wrong about, I just want to
But
say
like
we were at least
this.
right about that.
but that's the thing.
Yeah.
I said he was going to be a top 10 wide receiver going into the year, and I was still wrong. I still undershot it, and I said he was going to be a top 10 wide receiver in the league. Again, I don't think anyone expected this growth from the Seahawks. I don't even think many Seahawks fans expected this growth. Aside from the one Seahawks fan that I often have thought about over the course of the last, I don't know, month,
Yeah.
who was in our comments 8
Shout out
months
to that
ago.
guy.
And
Oh my
I went
God,
back.
yeah.
That was Mike McDonald.
Yeah, I went back through and I wanted to find it because I really wanted to give him props. I mean, this kid stood up on what he or person stood up for what he believed. And I mean, he had talked about, like he said, the Seahawks are going to win at least 2 playoff games. Well, look at them now. They won 2 playoff games and they're now in the Super Bowl. I often think about him. I don't know if he still listens or they still listen, but just know we didn't forget about you. That one random Seahawks fan that stumbled across. But the main reason I'm bringing that up is because I remember all of us when we had seen that comment were like, holy delusion, right? We're like, there's no
Fun
way
to be a fan.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, it's fun to be a fan of your team, but that's not going to happen. And I remember all of us having that same reaction, and here we are. As you said, no one expected this. This team gives, 15, 16, 17, 30 teams hope that they can be this team here next year, assuming you make the right moves when it matters the most. And, sometimes it might be tough moves, like moving on from a quarterback or moving on from a DK Metcalf. But sometimes those risks play off. Sometimes those gambles get you to, spots that you couldn't have even imagined.
Yeah, I think all 32 teams. Well, yeah, you said 30. So, I mean, obviously not the 2 teams that are in the Super Bowl. I get it. But, yeah, I agree with you when you say, those other 30 teams, it could be you pretty quick. And, I mean, this dates back to, what was it, 2020 or 2021 when the Bengals made it that quick? You know what I mean?
No.
Obviously, we haven't seen Joe Burrow and the Bengals back since, but these things can happen, and it takes a little bit of luck, but at the end of the day, this is one of, if not, in my opinion, it is the hardest championship to get to, let alone win, and in all of sports. And, in that sense, it's it is absolutely incredible to see the run that these 2 teams have gone on, in comparison to, the Rams, who have been contenders for, the last, 4 years at this point, 5 years. And, since they won the Super Bowl, since Matthew Stafford has been on that team, they have been contenders. And, then you look at the Broncos, which, obviously AFC Championship losers, I think that they could have probably been here too. That's just another team that you look at and you're like, Bo Nix probably should have played in this game. And, now we're in the same exact spot. You're looking at that team also thinking we should be encouraged about where we're at, even though it's disappointing that, the injury happened, but it's you've got 4 teams right off the top of your head to where it's we're in a good spot right now. And that's not even mentioning the rest of the field. It's you go on a run, you feel pretty good about it. But this Seahawks team, man, the turnaround, and I feel like we're emphasizing on them a lot more. So, sorry to Patriots fans, but I feel like the run that they've gone on this year specifically, and then to look that dominant in the divisional round and then back it up in the conference championship by winning that game, and then now you're here, gives off the feeling of they could really tear into the Patriots this time. I'm really hoping it's a close game, because the last thing you want is one of those games like the Seahawks did against the Broncos and Peyton Manning. But it's I have a feeling to where there's at least a slight chance that could tear into it because of how good this team as a whole unit has been.
But
pretty incredible.
Even to Matt's point, though, about the Patriots, because again, we had focus a little bit of that conversation on the Seahawks. And for the Patriots, for maybe a similar reason, but a different reason, right? They can still give so much hope to so many different people. And it goes back to that old adage that, like, if you can find the right guy to be your signal caller, you can get here. Because what does Drake May have? I mean, like, I hate to say it, but, like, all of us agreed. We went into this season and we said, well, there's not a really good surrounding cast around Drake May. Yeah, they hired Mike Vrabel, and, like, good for him. But if you can get that head coaching and quarterback pairing correct, that can get you here. Whether that's developing it or, finding it in your own way, like Mike Vrabel. But it can give hope to even those other teams, obviously in a different way, because the Patriots are so much more focused on, like, the singularity that is Drake May compared to the Seahawks in terms of making all the right margin moves. But your quarterback goes off for one season, and here we are, and they're in the MVP conversation, and you can find yourself playing in the Super Bowl, and no one expected it.
Yeah. Should we make some picks on this one? What do you think?
One last thing.
Yeah.
I just want to go full circle into the offseason. Because remember, I did these questions for every team. So I just wanted to look back at what I said. I haven't looked at these in months and months. But, like, for the Seahawks, they trade away 2 formidable and competent players at premium positions because of payment, in Geno and DK Metcalf, to get actively worse and add draft capital screams rebuild, but they spent on 3 diminishing assets, Darnold, Kupp, and DeMarcus Lawrence, makes this fascinating. Do they want to be good? Do they want to thread the tightest of needles? Or are they slow tracking a rebuild, just turning every stone necessary? I think they threaded the needle, guys.
Threaded the needle in that one.
I think they threaded the needle.
Yeah.
And then New England. This was like, there's a lot of blah, 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 this and that. Draft capital, blah, volume, draft picks. But, like, the biggest one here is in a year's time, whether this team wins 3 games or shocks and makes the playoffs with 9 or somehow makes Super Bowl winning 14 games, are New England fans able to puff their chests out once again with the swag of we got our guy going into 2026 with Drake May? Hey, he's going to finish in the top 2 in MVP voting. I think they did. So I just think this is 2 years ago, guys. They were firing Pete Carroll and Bill Belichick on back-to-back days. Bill Belichick looks like the oldest man on the universe in baby blue, in the Carolina baby blue, and he's not making and the biggest Bill Belichick story is not even his program. It's about how he's not making the Hall of Fame, and we need to change the voting again. And then Pete Carroll just led one of the single worst football seasons of the modern era with the Raiders this year. Like, again, it's just similar to college football, to, like, turn it that way, like, get the coach right. Get the coach right, and everything else, like, it seems to fall into place. But it's just, I think it's pretty cool because it gives me hope as a Saints fan. I mean, it gives both of. I mean, not that you guys needed any hope after, like, a great playoff season, but I just, speaking for the bottom, for, like, every team picking in the top 10 right now, like, we can make jokes about the Cardinals. The Cardinals are a good roster. I thought they were going to win 10 games this year. Like, what if Mike LaFleur is the answer? Like, who knows?
Should I make the point? This is the magic of what happens when a team like the Chiefs isn't in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be fun to, like, talk to people who, don't watch the sport around me, watching the Super Bowl with me, and being like, yeah, it's not just the guy with, the team with the best player and the best roster, and I mean, maybe the Seahawks are the best roster, but you get my point. Like, this wasn't possible in August to anybody. And I have a question for you guys. Do you have a specific point this season watching either of these teams that you realize, like, oh, this is real, like, this is possible? If not, that's fine. But I have one specific in mind.
The Patriots one for me was just I don't think there was one specific game. I mean, you might be able to like point out like their early upset, with Buffalo. I think it was like week 4 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not one that specifically stands out for me in terms of then. But over the course of the season, at least in my mind, it always felt like it was the Rams, right? It was the Rams are going to be the team to beat. The Rams are going to be the team to beat. You better watch out. Matt Stafford might get hot at the right time. You never want to play against him. And then what did the Seahawks do? They put together one of the best comebacks I've ever seen and ended up beating like the team in an overtime victory when they probably shouldn't have. And it was at that point I'm like, okay, well, maybe the Seahawks are actually a legit team. And, I know that happened way later in the season, especially compared to week 4 with the Patriots. But it was at that moment where I'm like, yeah, the Seahawks team is legit.
I'm gonna say for the Seahawks, it has to be the overtime win against LA. That'll probably be mine. For the Patriots, it's really hard to find one considering. I mean, they ended up they probably had the easiest schedule, and
They did. They had the easiest schedule in like the last 10 years or something, but here they are.
Yeah, I think it took a while for the Patriots, so I'll just say like the divisional round, I guess, was like because I don't think anybody really thought like the Patriots are a favorite in the AFC because like I remember all of us being like, who's coming out of the AFC? Like the NFC is like, whatever. But yeah, I think that game against the Texans was like really one of those where I'm like, they could beat Denver, like, So it obviously with Bo Nix and everything gone, it was like that's happening. But yeah, that would be my 2 probably. Matt?
Yeah, I mean, for New England, I definitely knew Drake May was really good, and I even predicted them to lose in the first round of the Chargers. So I was never sold on this defense. So like easily I could say, well, the Chargers game in the playoffs, but because that's when the defense really showed out. But I think like the first moment that it was like, I'll go back even further to the first time that I was like, oh, Drake May's the guy is when he played the Saints. When he played the Saints, what he was able to do down the field explosive, because like that's how, so much of the NFL is programmed. How many coaches are built around like, how do I find explosives? How do I get, one of these players that is able to like he completed, I think he was like four passes of 40 plus air yards in that game alone. It was incredible, and every ball was just on the money. He had one taken away, I think, because of like an OPI on Diggs, where it was like just completely away from the play. I remember that, but that was the first time that I was like, "Oh, Drake May's like one of the 5 best quarterbacks." Like it's not just like, "Oh, this is a fun story. He's pretty good." And then for Seattle, I know they're not a good team, but when they beat the hell out of the Commanders on Sunday Night Football in the way that they did, that was the moment that I was turning heads, going, "Oh, this team's definitely going to be in there." And if this defense plays like this when they're in there, going to be a hard out. But like you guys said, I mean, the Rams game, for them to be able to like have that gear offensively to beat LA and then do it again in the playoffs, I mean, I think that's the moment for everybody. And everybody's going to have the Patriots game against the Bills and that LA game. But for me personally, like those were just the moments that like watching live that it's like, oh, this is different. This really is different, huh? And so, but we went long on that. I'm happy we did. It's just a fun discussion for both of these teams because I think it does include all 30 others that aren't participating.
Yeah.